All right, let's talk about something I think we all feel. We live in this world with endless options. So, why is it that so many of us feel completely and utterly stuck? Today, we're going to unpack the psychology behind that feeling of paralysis and build a real toolkit to move from frozen to purposeful.
I mean, seriously, think about it. Have you ever been in the grocery store just staring at a wall of 50 different yogurt brands and you just walk away with nothing? Or maybe you spent weeks drowning in a sea of Amazon tabs and YouTube reviews for a new laptop and you still can't pull the trigger? If that sounds even vaguely familiar, you are in exactly the right place. So that feeling, that sense of being completely frozen by options, the inability to just make a call, well, turns out it's a real thing. It has a name, and understanding it is the very first step. So let's dive into the science behind this paralysis of choice. It's called analysis paralysis. And really, what it boils down to is anxiety, right? It's our brain going into overdrive, desperately trying to find the one single perfect choice. And the fear of making the wrong one becomes so powerful that it just feels safer to do nothing at all. And what's wild is that the psychologist Barry Schwartz wrote a whole book about this. He called it the paradox of choice. And his big idea is that the very thing we think we want, more freedom, more options, is often the exact thing that makes us less happy and completely freezes us in our tracks. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. A classic experiment called the JAM study proves it perfectly. Researchers set up a tasting table. One day, they offered 24 different flavors of jam. On another day, just 6. The result was incredible. As you can see right here, when faced with fewer options, people were a staggering 10 times more likely to actually buy a jar. More choice literally created less action.
And okay, it's not just about jam. This has serious real-world consequences. Studies on retirement plans discovered that for every 10 extra fund options they offered, employee participation actually dropped. Even more telling, when doctors were given 2 new medicines to consider instead of just one, they were far more likely to just default to what they already knew, in this case, surgery. The stakes get higher, but the paralysis is exactly the same. So we've established that we're overloaded with options. But what if the problem isn't just the number of choices, but the fact that we're missing a compass to navigate them? This brings us to a much deeper issue, our modern crisis of values. You know, psychologists often split our values into 2 big buckets. On one side, you've got intrinsic values. These are about inner satisfaction, things like empathy, community, personal growth. On the other side are extrinsic values, which are all about external validation, fame, wealth, power. And let's be real, our culture today is constantly screaming at us to focus on the extrinsic stuff.
And when we spend all our time chasing those external goals, we can end up feeling profoundly empty. The psychiatrist Viktor Frankl had a powerful name for this, the existential vacuum. It's that nagging feeling of meaninglessness, where you've ticked all the boxes the world told you to, but you're left wondering, is this it? You don't even know what you truly want anymore.
This all connects to 2 very different ideas of happiness. The first is hedonia. Think of it like a sugar rush. It's the pursuit of pleasure, minimizing pain. It feels good in the moment, but it's fleeting. Then there's eudaimonia. This is about seeking meaning, purpose, and becoming your best self. It's that deep, lasting satisfaction of building something that actually matters. The problem is, our culture often pushes us to chase the quick hit of hedonia, when what we're really starving for is the deep fulfillment of eudaimonia. Okay, so how do we find that meaning? How do we build that inner compass? For our first tool, we're going to turn to a really powerful concept from Japan. Let's talk about finding your Ikigai. Now, I am almost certain you've seen this diagram before. It's the popular Western take on Ikigai, presented as this perfect sweet spot where what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for all magically intersect. And hey, as a model for a career, it's a pretty helpful way to think. But here's a thought. What if this popular diagram, with its immense pressure to find one single perfect job that checks every single box, is actually part of the problem? What if the true Japanese concept of Ikigai is something much simpler and way more accessible to every one of us? Because in Japan, Ikigai isn't necessarily about your job or getting paid. It's much more profound. It's simply your reason to get up in the morning. It's about finding joy in your daily life, in the small things, contributing to your community, and always wanting to grow. It's a way of living, not a single high-stakes destination.
In fact, this concept is so important in Japan that researchers there actually developed a scientific tool to measure it. It's called the Ikigai 9. And just look at the kinds of things this scale measures. It's not about finding a perfect job. It's about feeling like you have an impact, staying curious, wanting to develop yourself, feeling like you're contributing. This is a much more holistic and, frankly, a much more attainable view of a life filled with purpose. So now we have a compass, Ikigai, this pursuit of daily meaning. But a compass is totally useless if you're too afraid to take the first step. To tackle that fear of making the wrong move, we need a practical strategy. And for that, we turn to the ancient Stoics. In our final section, the Stoic art of action. The Stoics built their whole philosophy around one brilliantly simple idea, the dichotomy of control. They said you need to separate everything in life into two buckets, things you can control and things you can't. You can't control the outcome of a project, but you can control your effort. You can't control what other people think, but you can control your own actions. This is the absolute key to overcoming anxiety. The philosopher Epictetus put it perfectly. He said external things, like getting sick, can be a roadblock for your body, for your plans, but they cannot touch your will, your ability to choose how you respond. That power is always yours, and that's where we need to put all our energy. So here's the practical game plan. First, you break it down. Forget about the huge, overwhelming goal. Just focus on one ridiculously small first step. Second, focus on small wins. Your only job is to complete that one tiny step. That's it. And third, this is the magic part, build momentum. Because momentum is the ultimate antidote to fear. Each small win proves to your anxious brain that you can move forward, which builds the confidence for the next step and the one after that. And that brings us to the final question, the only one that really matters. Forget the grand plan for a minute. Forget all the different options. Looking at your life, right now, what is one small, manageable step, something completely within your control that you can take today to move just a little bit closer to a life of meaning?